You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com with Peter H. and Stevie J. Find them on Twitter at HardcoreCDN and at AngryMarks. And now, for all the news, reviews, and interviews in mixed martial arts, it's time for Glove Up or Shut Up from AngryMarks.com.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Peter, why is it that the UFC pay-per-views that look lame on paper turn out to be the ones that are the most fun to watch?
I don't have an answer for you, to be perfectly honest. It was a crazy night and a crazy main event. 2
stump pullers on one card. There had been one in the entire history of UFC before Saturday night, and we got 2 in one show.
But we only had one title fight.
One title fight because Nico Montano got stripped after we taped our show last week because she was not only not able to weigh in, she was so dehydrated that her kidneys stopped working, and she was, in her own words, 30 minutes away from a heart attack.
And remind me again which state the commission said that she couldn't fight in?
Texas.
The one who let Dada 5000 and Kimbo have that infamous brawl?
Mm-hmm. Where one of them ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks, and the other, sadly, is no longer with us. And that was the message I sent you when they announced that Nico Montano was not going to be allowed to fight. I said, bro, you know this is bad when Texas is not going to let her fight.
Yeah, I feel bad because obviously Valentina, she called it. She called it, and I thought, this fight's going to happen. Come on now. She's not ducking her. And
well, she came in 20 pounds overweight, so if she wasn't ducking her, she was bulking up because she was afraid of her, one or the other.
So what's going to happen now is she's been stripped of the title. Valentina gets a title shot. I think they're saying end of the year, I believe, is what I saw.
And the hot take on it right now is the interim title fight or the title fight, whatever it may be, will be Shevchenko and Joanna Champion.
Ooh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
there's
we'll
also
talk
history. There's history between the two of them.
But at 125?
No, in Muay Thai.
Oh, Muay Thai, okay. Well, I mean, 125, if both fighters can make weight at the end of the year, and...
Well, actually, Joanna cuts a lot of weight to cut the straw weight, so 125 would actually be a lot easier for her.
Yeah, well, you know how much I love interim titles. I hope this is actually for the real belt.
I assume so, because you're the one who brought up interim, but when Dana White said she was stripped, I was like, okay, that means the title is vacant. So Shevchenko, if she automatically gets the fight for the title, that's going to be for the real title.
Yep. The real world champion coming up.
Unlike Colby Covington, who is no longer the champion of anything.
We'll get to him in a minute. We do have some breaking news this week. Something just happened, like, literally before we went to air today. USADA. They've come out and suspended Fabricio Verdun for 2 years for steroids. Color me shocked, Stevie.
Well, this all went down originally back in April. That's when he first failed for Trenbolone?
Yep.
Whatever it is. And Epitrenbolone. Basically, he tested positive for some steroids and for some masking things to mask steroids. Let's just put it that way. They are both specified in the class of anabolic agents and prohibited at all times under the UFC anti-doping policy. As a result, he was removed from the UFC card in Moscow when his provisional suspension began on May 22nd, and now that they've officially imposed a 2-year ban, that means the date he's eligible again will be May 22nd, 2020, at which point he would be 43 years old. So his career is pretty much shot.
He can coach.
I think actually USADA doesn't allow you to coach when you're suspended. I think that's not allowed.
Well, you can't be cage side, but I'm sure you can coach it in the gym.
Maybe at your own gym, but not for a fighter. You can't corner, you can't coach.
Well, maybe he's going to take it as a vacation then. I don't know. It's just, when you see this, you're right. 41, going to be 43 when this is over. Obviously, he's out of the rankings.
You can't rank a fighter who's not eligible to fight. That's simple math.
And he was recently getting knocked out in, what was it, March?
Well,
he got knocked out in London, I believe. That was his last fight.
Right.
In the 4th round.
And the Moscow fight was supposed to be his big bounce back fight from that. And that fight card's this weekend.
Yep. So we'll talk about that card in a minute, but there's more news that's just breaking. Michael Chiesa is now suing Conor McGregor.
No shock there, because he's one of the fighters who ended up losing out on his fight at UFC 223 when shards of glass went into his eye.
This is a scary, scary precedent. And there's another fighter who, how do I say this? I don't want to sound mean or anything, but for lack of a better term, one of the fighters, it sounds like, has PTSD after this event because she can't seem to shake the events of that day.
Well, actually, it's funny you mention that, because You Want a Champion was one of the people on that bus, and I believe, or no, it was Rose. It was Rose Namajunas who was on that bus. And she had to actually get off the bus and, walk for a mile just to clear her head.
Yeah, she's still suffering the effects, apparently.
I mean, there's a reason she's called Thug Rose. She kind of grew up a little rough, so probably something like that happening to her was a flashback to memories that were best left forgotten.
Yeah. I said it before, it's going to set a scary precedent because, I mean, what's the end result of this? What
the end result is lawsuits and lawyers and legal fees and lots of time in court, because Chiesa is suing for loss of wages, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and assault and battery.
Well, it's not like Conor has a lot of money. Oh, wait. Never mind.
Yeah, he could probably settle out of court if he wanted to, but that's not even the reason Chiesa is suing. In my mind, the reason Chiesa is suing is because Conor got off with a slap on the wrist in community service, and Chiesa's like, no, you ruined my fight, you made everybody's life hell, you need to pay more than that.
I think one of the most dangerous enemies, or not enemies, but the most dangerous opponent when it comes to a court of law is someone who's doing it on principle. Mm-hmm. Because they won't stop. Mm-hmm. Some people, they sue, they want to be settled out of court, and that's it, that's all. Some, they don't, money isn't the motivator, it's the principle. They want to make a point. And Chiesa, if he drags this out, this could dog Conor for a while.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what he wants. I'm totally in his corner on that one.
Now, let's talk about what happened this past weekend at UFC 228. We had, as we mentioned, one title fight because the other title fight got scrapped. But let's start at the top with Darren Till trying to dethrone Tyrone Woodley.
You know, I gotta say a whole lot of things, so you're gonna have to give me the floor for a few minutes here. This is gonna take a little bit.
Go ahead.
First of all, Tyrone Woodley has a really damn good point. He's been saying for a while now that he doesn't get the respect he deserves as the welterweight champion, that people don't treat him like he's one of the top stars in the promotion. Dana White doesn't show him the respect a champion deserves. Dana disrespects him constantly, calls his fights boring, and he doesn't get the same star treatment from the media that the champions in other weight classes do. And he thinks there's like a personal animosity towards him in the promotion. And I think he's got a point, because he went out here in this fight and proved his point. You say I'm boring? Well, look what I did to your poster boy Darren Till. You say that I'm not a good champion? Well, look at how dominating I was in this fight. You say that I'm not charismatic or exciting? Did you listen to what I had to say after the fight? I was plenty charismatic and exciting. It's time y'all give me some respect. And he beat that respect into Darren Till. And I mean beat. He threw so many elbows at Darren Till's head in the second round. At one point, I think he actually looked at him and he's like, damn, I'm getting tired of busting you up with these fucking elbows. You just won't go out. I'm just going to keep hitting you with elbows until you start trying to block it, and then I'm going to use that as the opportunity to sink in a Darce choke, because you're just going to get sick of getting hit with these fucking elbows. And that's what happened. He threw up his arms to defend himself, and finally he was like, oh shit, Darren, you fucked up now. I got you. I'm going to sink in this choke, and you're going to tap.
I was so into the fight, I lost count of the elbows.
It had to be over 50. It was just slam, 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 left and right, one after the other. And, I mean, it was almost gruesome because you could see the cuts opening up in Till's forehead.
And for Till's part, I mean, the first round, it wasn't bad. It wasn't like he was getting smoked or anything that first round.
He had some moments. He didn't really rock Woodley at any point, but he was in the fight. Woodley was, I say, landing the better blows of the first round, but it was that takedown and the elbows that followed where his life went to hell in round two.
I think our boy Colby Covington had some thoughts about Darren Till, and oh boy, does he not have a mute button after commenting on this performance?
A lot of people needed a mute button after this performance. In fact, Snoop Dogg apparently can't tell the difference between Darren Till and Colby Covington.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That shouldn't happen.
No, Snoop. One guy sounds like Conor McGregor, and the other guy sounds like an American. You should be able to tell the difference on that basis alone.
Well, maybe he was impaired by a certain herb. Who knows?
Maybe. He does like the ganja.
He doesn't touch the stuff anymore, does he?
Oh, no, of course not.
All right, let's talk about Carolina Kay and Jessica Andrade.
Yes, and I made the unfortunate mistake of picking Kowalkiewicz in this fight. I thought, she's been a stalwart of this weight class for some time. She's been in title fights before. I know Jessica Andrade is the flavor of the month right now, but these Polish chicks are some badass motherfucking fighters. I'm going to go with Kowalkiewicz and see for the upset if she can do it. And she never had a chance. And I'm not just saying that to humble myself. I mean, 3 seconds into this fight, Andrade was just punching her in the face. She was throwing her around. She was beating her up. You know what? I'm just going to punch you straight in the face and knock you out cold. Now, let me reiterate, this was a strawweight fight. You don't normally see strawweights winning by knockout. Every now and then, a TKO when they beat somebody's ass enough that the referee steps in to save their opponent. But Jessica Andrade just cold cocked her. Good night, Irene.
It was violent. I guess is the best way I can think of it. It was something where you ever watch a fight and you actually feel like the pain. You feel like, oh, like you could almost see, this fight isn't lasting long.
No. Carolina, like I said, from the moment the fight began, it was already over for her. She was totally outmatched. Jessica Andrade, if you're going to make a hypothetical pound for pound list and put people who would be a badass mofo if they were 6 foot and 205 pounds, put Andrade on that list. Cause man, I'd hate to see what a terror she would be if she was John Jones size.
All right, let's talk about Brandon Davis against Zabit Magomedsharipov.
Yes, and this was another lopsided, one-sided affair where Zabit was, he was fighting a guy who stepped up, so all heart and praise due to Brandon Davis for taking the place of Yair Rodriguez. But again, horribly outmatched here. Zabit absolutely had his way with him, and then twisted him up into a human pretzel in the second round and just said, nope, you're done. You're tapping out. Stump puller. you're through.
I just,
Were you surprised when you saw him take that leg and pull it through? Did you think that was going to be the finish?
when I saw it, I was like, he's not going for, yeah, there it is. Down, like, lights out.
2 in one night. That was the second. We haven't even gotten to the first one yet.
No. I'm trying to remember it was the Abdul fight I'm thinking. No, hold on. Which one had the banana split? Was it this one?
Well, you could call it a banana split. You can call it a stump puller. You can call it whatever you want to call it.
Banana split is that's my reaction when I saw it. Stump puller I haven't heard in a few years, I'll be honest, but, I marked out a little bit. I did say, banana split! Are you serious right now? Let's talk about, John Dodson and Jimmy Rivera.
Another one-sided fight, but not as violent as some of these other ones that we've been talking about, although I did send you a good screenshot of Jimmy Rivera blasting John Dodson in the face and him falling backward with his face all screwed up like, damn it.
Yeah, the screen cap was perfect because it was almost like that moment where you hear a record scratch and you're like, you wonder how I got to this moment. Let me show you how. Yeah. It's,
Jimmy Rivera just outworked him, and that doesn't usually happen to John Dodson. He's usually faster than people, and he usually hits harder than people, but Rivera had his number.
do you think his striking power is underrated, or do you think this woke up the division?
I think Jimmy Rivera was just putting him on notice that, hey, you were tough, and you were great, and you were dominant in your time, but there's a new class coming along, and it's our time.
Fair enough. Abdul Razak Al Hassan against Nico Price. This is the one you messaged me. It's like, oh my god. 43 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What a way to start out the pay-per-view. I mean, again, I did not expect this pay-per-view card in particular. I mean, the whole card was fun, but this pay-per-view card really got off to a hot start with this fight because I don't even know what else to say other than 43 seconds. It was just Nico Price being handed his head on a platter, like, here, take all of my skill and ability and will and determination and strength and just take it all from me, because you're just gonna hit me with everything you got and I'm gonna crumble. And that's exactly what Abdul Razak Al Hassan did to him. Nico Price, he paid the price.
Well, let's move on to the prelims, and boy, oh boy, Cookie Monster and Tatiana Suarez.
What an example of just ragdolling an opponent. I mean, just took her down and mauled her like she stole something. And you could see in as far as his body language that she was thinking, I'm going to defend until I can get back up, and I'm going to survive this, and I'm going to look for a submission, and I'm not going to quit, and I'm just going to keep taking this beating, and I'm going to find some way to overcome this. But she just kept getting Habib'd over and over again. Yes, I just made Habib a verb. She got Habib'd in this fight. She got thrown all over the place. Suarez is just so fucking strong and just ragdolled her and beat her mercilessly. And that third round in particular, I thought it could have ended like 30 seconds earlier because she had taken, I mean, she was in the fight at least somewhat in the first and second round, but in that third round, when she got thrown to the ground and started just getting whooped, I mean, all she was doing was just laying there and taking it. She wasn't defending. She wasn't escaping. It was brutal.
Well, I mean, we have a case where I think it was after the first round, she had 3 different welts on her face. Left, right, and center.
Yeah, Suarez, like I said, she Habib'd her. She just threw her down and mauled her.
Someone made the joke, I forget where I saw it, but something about the Cookie Monster crumble or the cookie crumbles or something like that, and I was like, oh, come on, that's just low.
Hey, I just said Nico paid the price. It's not any worse than that.
Yeah. Aljamain Sterling beat Cody Stamann with a knee bar at 3:42 of the second round.
Stump puller.
Stump puller. Let's see what else we have. We got Jeff Neal beating Frank Camacho with the head kick of doom.
We cannot, you can gloss over Funkmaster if you want to. I thought that was a great performance, but we cannot gloss over this because this second round is something I will never forget in my entire life. Jeff Neal started tagging Frank Camacho and hurting him really bad, and Camacho wouldn't fall down, and Camacho would get a little shaky on his feet, but he wouldn't stumble. And finally, at one point, when Jeff Neal backs up and he's like, I gotta figure out how to put this guy to sleep, Camacho just decides to hulk up, and I mean that literally. He hulks up and he screams, "Come on!" And he charges right at Jeff Neal, and I was like, oh my God, this man is crazy. And he charges at Jeff Neal, and they start brawling again, and Jeff just hits him with this photo finish perfect kick right to the upside of his head. And this time, Camacho cannot keep his feet under him. You want to talk about a cookie that crumbled? He crumbled. I mean, it was a walk-off kick. Like, there was no follow-up on Jeff Neal's part. The referee rushed in immediately. He hit that kick. He looked at the man fall in front of him. He's like, yep, it's done.
It was a video game ending because I'll admit I throw a couple of head kicks when I play UFC 3, and sometimes it happens where you just land it perfectly and it's lights out. And the way he fell, all the circumstances leading to that moment, it was perfect. It was right kick, right angle, right time, and yeah, it was a walk-off. It was a home run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Camacho may need like 3 to 6 months of medical suspension after that knockout because it was brutal. I'm using that word a lot tonight, but damn, this appeals to some primal instinct in me that this card was just brutal and savage to watch.
And also we had Aaron Rodgers beat the Chicago Bears. What was that?
I didn't say disappointing and depressing. I said brutal and savage.
Darren Stewart beat Charles Byrd to round out the upper half of the prelims with elbows and punches at 2:17 of the second round.
Yeah, and another really spectacular finish here. In fact, I'd say really the only two disappointing fights were probably the Diego Sanchez-Craig White, because that was just kind of one-sided and just a wrestling fest, and Jared Brooks and Roberto Sanchez going to a split decision. Now, you might have said that about Aldana and Pudilova, but that was a barn burner of a fight, and it was a split decision because they were both working that hard and fighting that tough, and they got the fight of the night bonus. So, Aldana and Pudilova, even though that looks like a bad fight on paper when you read split decision, no, go out of your way to watch that one on Fight Pass, because it was damn good. And then, of course, you were the one who texted me about Jim Miller choking out Alex White, so not a boring fight there either. That only took 89 seconds.
No, the prior fight, that's the reason there was the blood spots all over the cage, because both were gushing blood at the end of that fight.
Yeah, Aldana and Pudilova just poured it on, literally.
Jim Miller, his post-fight, if you can watch the post-fight, go out of your way to catch it. He had Lyme disease. He had his first real, as he said, my first real training camp in a long time. He actually trained like an athlete again.
How long did he say he'd been suffering? Like 4 years, 5 years?
I thought it was more than 2 or 3 at least, but I can't imagine the pain and the fog and just, oh my God.
Yeah.
To come back and win this fight, and, you know, Alex White, there was no way he was, like...
He was not getting out of that choke. No way, no how.
No, I mean, he would have to get the jaws of life to get him out of it if he didn't let go. Like, there was no escape there. It was done.
Well,
simple as that.
That's pretty much how I felt about Zabit getting that stump puller. Like, that guy's gonna tap or his knee is gonna snap. It's one or the other.
Now, let's talk some news before we move on to the UFC show in Russia this weekend. Let's see, what else haven't we mentioned?
Moncton.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we ought to talk about Moncton.
Right, Moncton. We'll talk about Moncton first. Just going to go back to where I was. 2 seconds here. Moncton. No, we don't want to talk about that right now. So many things on my screen right now. Buenos Aires. Nope, too far. I had it in my notes. There it is. UFC Fight Night 138, Moncton, New Brunswick. Volkan Ozdemir and Anthony Smith are the main events. That one's going to be tough. Misha
Shirkinov
against Patrick Cummings, which should be good. Ed Herman and Gian Vellante, that could steal the show.
Our boy Short Fuse.
Gavin Tucker against Andre Sukumtoff. Thank you. And Sean Strickland and Radim Talib round up the main card. But, I mean, you got Talita Bernardo and Sarah Moraes. I mean, you've got Court McGee, Alex Garcia. Stevie Ray's on this card against Justin Ayari. I mean, there's some decent names on this card, Stevie.
Yeah, for their first ever show in Moncton, they're really putting together a bang-up card. So, hats off to UFC for finally bringing some fights to New Brunswick.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been to that province, but
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah, it's been I'd say maybe 10 years. So I would love to go to that show. It's just it falls in a bad time for me, to be perfectly honest, and I've got other trips coming down the pipeline for I don't know, April next year, I'm thinking. Maybe in New York, I'm thinking, Stevie.
Probably so.
Yeah. So let's move on to some other news. We talked about the fight of the night. Aldana actually broke her hand in that win.
I'm not shocked. I am not the least bit surprised. I would think they would have both broken their hands.
After the interview with Joe Rogan, she pointed at her hand, and there was speculation that she told her corner that she broke it. I was a little concerned about the timing because usually after a 3-round war, they don't do any post-fight interviews. And after the interview, I looked at the time, and there was only 45 minutes left. You had 2 fights to go, and I'm like, we're not, unless one fight ends early, we're gonna have trouble here. And I even put it out there on Twitter, and a friend of the show said, I said, why are they giving the women the time? They're running low on time. And basically the answer was because they deserve it. And I was like, absolutely they deserve it. I'm just worried about the timing of the show. They didn't pace the show. As far as a live event of live fights, it's hard to, unless there's some type of a delay, because you have to be done at 8. You have to be done at 10. There's no overtime, so to speak.
Well,
you can't borrow from one to go to the other.
You always know when they're actually running short on time when they go to Bruce Buffer for the post-fight announcement of the scores, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, we go to the judges' scorecards for decision. All 3 judges score the fight 29-28 for your winner by unanimous decision. It's like, okay, they were running low on time because he just took some speed and ran through that as fast as he could.
Yeah, and we're, it's also another sign when they are not showing the entrances. You come back from commercial and they're already in the cage.
That's another good telling one. That's a little more obvious than, because Bruce Buffer will do that when it's like 8:59, but when they, actually I've seen that at Bellator too, where they're already putting the fighters in the cage for the next fight just the moment the scores for the last fight have been read. That's another telling sign that they're running low on time.
Okay, what else can we mention here? We mentioned that, UFC is going to Argentina for UFC Fight Night there. Neil Magny and Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Yep.
And that'll be on November 17th. Also added to that card is Khalil Roundtree and Johnny Walker.
That'll be a good fight.
Jessica Andrade said before her fight at 228, she said she would want to fight Rose for the strawweight title. And we do have one Bellator.
Which reminds me, I gotta say this. I'm gonna regret it if I don't say it right here, right now. Suarez, in her post-fight interview, said, Rose, put the belt in the mail, it's mine.
Yeah, that was a good quote, not gonna lie. That was a good quote.
I mean, if you're in the position of Dana White right now, you gotta be loving life because you've got 2 contenders to face Rose.
Embarrassment of riches. I like it. You did mention something about Bellator. I did want to touch on. There was it a K1 or it was something involving a contract?
It was Melvin Manouf and his World Fighting League, and the winner of his K1 Grand Prix will get a Bellator contract, as will the winner of his MMA lightweight tournament.
Interesting. Good to know. And I saw this article, Stevie, before we talk Russia. Ben Askren. He says that Colby Covington is a poor version of himself.
Hard to argue.
I saw that and I'm like, what are you saying? I look at the screen and you ever look at a screen and you blink 3 or 4 times thinking it will change, like you're not reading it properly the first time? And it had me thinking for a good hour. I was like, he's not wrong. Oh my God, he's not wrong. Like, crap. Like, I can't come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no negative connotation. Like, usually I can pick apart, a fighter's comments and say, well, this, or this, or it means this or that. Especially if it's Conor McGregor, then it's a 20-minute show, part of the podcast, but he's not wrong.
No.
That's scary. And Colby Dana White said before the main event of UFC 228 that the winner of the main event gets Colby next.
Who is no longer the interim champion, so I'm not even sure what the point of that interim championship was.
So, do you have that fight? Could you do it at Madison Square?
Well, if Colby keeps talking the way he had been, and Tyrone Woodley is fighting like the badass mofo he fought like at UFC 228, I'd say yes.
It's definitely worthy of a main event spot.
Number 1 spot.
Now, if he does main event Madison Square, tell me he's not wearing that stupid hat to the cage.
I have no idea.
Oh, God. Okay. Let's touch on UFC Russia. I think the time difference, the show starts at 2 in the afternoon, I believe.
Something like that.
All right. Main event, Mark Hunt and Alexei Olenek.
Alexei Olenek.
Olenek?
Olenek.
Is Mark Hunt... How do I word this? Is Mark Hunt done after this fight? And I hate saying it like that because I've said it before when it comes to Hunt, but he keeps surprising you.
If he loses, I would think so.
Well, he's not getting any younger, that's for damn sure.
No.
And Russia wants a main event fight, and that's definitely considered a main event fight because a quality fighter like Hunt still has some gas in the tank. So he's had some wars, but he's still pretty sharp.
Agreed.
Jan Blachowicz against Nikita Krylov.
That's a very important fight for the heavyweight division. Or light heavyweight division, pardon me.
Yeah. I was going to say, they're bulking up for that one.
Light heavyweight, yes.
Blachowicz, if he wins that one convincingly, yeah, man, there are a couple of good fights in that one that could be made after that fight. Shamil Abdurakhimov.
I'm 99.9% sure that's not how you pronounce that. You want me to take a stab at it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give it a try here. Let me parse it and make sure. I'm going to go with Shamil Abdurakhimov.
He's fighting Andrei Arlovsky, a fighter well known to the both of us.
Yes, I hate to say it though, but the Pitbull is another one that his time may be a little past him now.
Is it official for the UFC Toronto to, lack of a better term, legends on their way out the door?
I guess you could say that. They're kind of giving him that one last ride in Russia.
And rounding up the main card is Alexei Kuchenko against Thiago Alves. Whoa, Alves. A win there, that would be huge. That would be, if he is a dominant win there, I mean, his next fight, you could have him on maybe even the main card of a pay-per-view.
No argument.
On the prelims, this is one thing I wanted to ask you. What's wrong with CB Dalloway? This is the third opponent for this fight. He's been bitten by the curse on this one.
I really don't know.
He's now fighting Khalid Murtazalev.
Right.
Rounding out the fight pass portion, rounding out the prelims of this card, I should say. Seeing if any of their names step out here. Peter Yan, Jinsu Sun, Rustam Kabalov against Cajun Johnson. That could be good. Tausimov in green. Okay. Jordan Johnson, Adam Fendiev. Some names on here. I mean, Terry and Ward on the first fight at bantamweight.
You know, sorry to backtrack here, but you were talking about CB Dollaway.
Yep.
And when you said third different opponent, I thought about that for a minute, and I realized I got a press release from M1 Global touting the fact that their world champion, Artem Frolov, was CB Dollaway's new opponent. And that's not the guy fighting CB Dollaway now. So Frolov, they sent out a press release about their world champion fighting CB Dollaway at a UFC, and the headline was, "Fighting in UFC, a dream come true for Artem Frolov." Well, guess what? That's not happening.
Nope. All right. Well, that's going to do it for Glow Up or Shut Up this week. Stevie, what's on tap for Thursday? Oh,
wait. There's one other note about this Russia card I want to address.
What's that?
Quote, "A lightweight bout between Des Green and Maribek Taizamov was scheduled for this event. The status of the pairing was unknown after Green sustained minor injuries in a serious car accident which left 2 people dead."
That's right. I forgot about that.
But that fight is still on the Fight Pass.
Yeah.
I guess those injuries weren't that severe.
I forgot about the car crash. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That fight didn't get canceled. It's still on here.
That's crazy. Well, how do you transition? We'll just go with it. Thursday night AMP.
Peach Machine.
Oh yes, I believe you sent me a note about that, and man, for those who don't know, I guess you could say friend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Had his tibia, right?
Fibula and tibia.
Snapped in half at a jiu-jitsu tournament.
An open weight Grand Prix.
Oh, and there's a GoFundMe going on right now. Stevie will have the link posted on our Twitter. I'll tweet it out I'll retweet when you tweet it out.
And Peach is coming on the show to talk about it.
Good to hear. If you can spare a couple bucks, help him out with his medical bills, because medical care in the United States we know isn't cheap.
At Peach Machine on Twitter.
Absolutely. Well, for Stevie J, I'm Peter H, the hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening. And as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
See ya.